Hello, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful lunch. So I purposely picked this time, so even if you go to sleep, I can blame the lunch and not my presentation skills. So today I'm going to talk to you about AI. So AI is naturally the buzzword that you are hearing all these days or all these months, I would say. So earlier, AI was not that prevalent. People would just talk about AI. It was more about theory. But when ChatGPT came up, when OpenAI launched this thing to the common masses, it is after that we came to know the power of AI, that such a thing actually exists. And within, say, 2023, 2022, we are able to have such a performance, such a model that is performing for us that is going to solve much of our problems. So today I'm going to talk to you about AI and SDLC. So why is this topic? Because artificial intelligence at this moment, everybody in the world is using artificial intelligence, be it a student, be it a copywriter or any kind of a person that is doing any kind of activity. So they are using AI. And we as engineers, we need to be at the forefront of this ecosystem. And as SDLC is the part and parcel of our lives, we cannot survive without that. That is why we need to make sure that we are also using AI into this space. So my name is Vicky Israni. I work as a senior solutions engineer at GitHub. I operate from Pune, Maharashtra. So I work with companies and startups. I understand their DevOps challenges, their DevSecOps challenges, and I figure out that where they are lacking, how to optimize them, and how to fit GitHub solutions into their ecosystem to make them more productive. So that's me 4 years and 15 kgs ago. So you can skip that. Okay, so now I'm going to talk to you about the famous SDLC. Let me take you back to your college days where you must have read about this concept. I don't know if you have practiced it or no in your organizations, but this is definitely what we have been made to learn and understand all our lives, and we have been told to fit ourselves into this system somewhere or the other. So we have the, obviously we have the waterfall, otherwise we have the agile. So some people call agile as waterfall with some extra meetings. So what happens is the stages remain the same. So basically we go from requirements, that is when you get your ideation from what is to be done, how it is to be done. After that, you go to your design phase, you do an analysis, you do the design as to how you're supposed to do it, how you're supposed to build your software, build your ecosystem. And then you do the implementation, testing, deployment, and finally, your maintenance. So this is a very standard behavior, and this has not changed over the years. But now we at GitHub, so as GitHub is where the place builds, the world builds software, so we have to be the forefront at this race in terms of introducing AI into this ecosystem. So I'm sure all of you have GitHub accounts, all of you must have coded in GitHub, so your code must be there in some of your repositories. So we took this responsibility of bringing AI to you in your ecosystem so that you are able to develop software quite faster. You are able to do all of these activities. So we have introduced AI not only in your coding space, so it is a misunderstanding that only coding requires AI. So we are doing it at each and every stage of the SDLC. So when we talk about SDLC, so SDLC in each stage, so whenever you're talking about requirement gathering, when you're talking about design, there are multiple phases to it. So this is a complex process. It is not the case that once you are done with requirement analysis, you're not supposed to go back. So once you're doing requirements, at the same time your design has to be done. If you're doing TDD, your test cases have to be written at the same time. So it's a very complex process, and there are multiple stages to it. So in each and every stage, how we can put in AI, how we can support you using GitHub products, this is what I'm going to showcase in this demonstration going forward. And it is not only about the process, it requires different roles. So when you are doing your analysis, so basically your product owners, your project managers, and the people sitting at the top of the project chain, so they are basically responsible for carrying out these activities for you. So as we go down the line, there are different people doing their jobs, similar to a cricket team like we had. So once the opener batsmen have done their job, afterwards in the second innings, it is the bowler's responsibility to take it ahead. But similarly, when you're doing it in SDLC, the first state is responsible for the success of the second state. So in the coding area, so when you are in the coding area, If the requirements are not proper, if the design analysis has not been done in a proper way, your code is bound to not expected to run in the way that it should be. And when we are talking about roles, so now here I explained multiple roles. So each of these roles has a depth to it. So for example, I'll take the role of a developer, a common developer. So he must be having company specific skills, but it is useless unless and until he understands what is the problem solving, how is logic getting built, what are data structures. So for example, if I take a fresher out of a college and I get him some certifications for AWS done, so unless and until he understands what is a CPU, what is RAM, what kind of machines, what kind of EC2 systems are to be developed, he won't understand. So his particular knowledge at the top, even if he is a AWS certified associate architect, he won't be understanding as to what is to be done in the entirety. So what GitHub does, what GitHub Copilot does is basically it is going to fill these gaps for you. So for example, if you come from a background where you have only company specific skills, and you don't know what are the basic skills, what are data structures, how are stuff to be written. So this is where GitHub Copilot can come to your rescue, and basically AI will fill all these gaps for you. So when we are dealing with SDLC, this is what it is expected. So we assume that we always need innovation. So in any of the company websites that you see, so you open that website and you will see the word innovation there. But do we see actual innovation happening? So there is no innovation happening in any of these companies. Basically what happens is the project manager will one fine day decide he needs to keep a hackathon. So he'll need to provide you t-shirts and pizzas, and after that innovation will happen and the developers will start thinking out of this box. And even after that, they'll be just fixing the backlog that they have. They won't be coming up with some new ideas. So innovation is definitely missing. After that, speed means earlier you think that at 8 a.m. I get the requirements and at 9 p.m. I'll ship the code. But this is definitely not happening, and this is getting spilled over the weekends. So developer productivity, developer happiness, this is also a challenge. Means the developers are never happy. They are always frustrated because you keep on calling them over the weekends. There is no fixed process. You have designed a process, but that is not working out for you. So how to streamline all this? How to make sure that these things, what we love, is actually happening into the ecosystem, and we are generating output out of our SDLC. This is where AI comes into picture. And finally, the most important point for maybe all of you founders is the cost reduction. So whenever you are trying to deal with an SDLC system and you are trying to hire people, cost is the first thing that comes to your mind as to how we can reduce cost. But unless and until your system is clear and there are no fixed directives happening, your cost cannot be reduced. So what is happening is, so we always see a growing number of backlogs. So our backlog is ever increasing. We are not able to get past those issues. The deliveries are always delayed. The developers are not at all happy. And the cost, eventually all this piles up so that your costs get increased. So I'm trying to come up with what is Copilot now. So GitHub Copilot is a generative AI tool that has been developed by GitHub and Microsoft in collaboration with OpenAI. So we basically, this particular model, it's an LLM that is specifically designed to solve all your software queries. So not only coding, not only design, but all the stages of SDLC, it is very much capable of handling all those problems for you and giving you the perfect solutions out there. So when you're dealing, we'll now go through all the phases of the SDLC, and one by one we'll try to discuss as to how GitHub Copilot can come to your rescue and try to fit in all those scenarios where you need help. So often it happens while you're developing requirements that even at the final stages of delivery, when your product is getting shipped, at that time also there are some requirement changes happening. So we need to make sure that you are solving these then and there. It should be done in the requirement stage itself, and the requirement gathering should be so solid that the entire pipeline, the rest of the pipeline goes on and executes quite fast. Okay, so here I have some high-level requirements. So on the right-hand side, if you see, there are some high-level requirements stated. So it is just kind of some high-level requirements that I've received from my customer, and he is expecting me as a project manager to go ahead and develop this system. So earlier, what I would do is I would figure out 3 to 4 senior people in my team, people who have been in my organization for 10 to 15 years, people who I have hired with the designation of architects, put them into a room and tell them, you give me solutions as to what is to be done. And then there would be lots of fights, lots of discussions, whiteboarding, chai sutta breaks. And after that, we will come up with a document that is also about 3 to 4 days later. So when you're dealing with something like GitHub Copilot, you can give your high-level requirements, whatever are your requirements, you can pass it to Copilot. You can tell it to break it down into functional and non-functional requirements, for example. Or if you want to create specification documents, API documents, any kind of stuff. So here you see it is breaking down your requirements into very detailed and precise requirements that can be directly executed and distributed to the end developers. So from a 60 to 70 pager ideation that you got from your client, the so-and-so system I want, and you are now at a stage where you need to start building things, you can ask GitHub Copilot to start developing this document for you, in which you get all the list of requirements separated by functional requirements, non-functional requirements, and you also have all those data points listed, and they are in the sequence of execution, how they should be getting executed. So moving ahead, none of us are experts in all the technologies that are available in the market, and I'm sure even if your team is a 20-member team, 25-member team, still there would be some discrepancies when you're trying to develop some software, as in you won't be able to use the best technologies that are available in the market. So if somebody has been working on Java for several years, so if you tell him that we should try JavaScript, we should try something else, so there will be a slight reluctancy between him because he does not know how to implement that. And going forward, he would not suggest taking on these new technologies because in the end, he is the person who is supposed to develop that. So that is not going to happen. So in this case, when we are trying to decide the best technologies, what are available, what are not, even if I am not the expert in all these technologies, I can tell Copilot, I can give it my set of requirements that this is what it is expected. And these requirements are in plain English. They do not contain any language, any software specifications as such. But here you see, GitHub Copilot will give you all these details as this can contain a front end, this will contain a back end, this has to have a database, and for storing data, you need to have something on the cloud. For running these systems, you need to be present on this so-and-so framework, and these are the third parties that you're supposed to use. So a complete stack it will give you, and also some implicit requirements. For example, if you're dealing with user data, you need to have user authentication. You need to have some 2FA systems to be inputted into your system. So this is also something that GitHub Copilot can give it to you. So basically, giving just an idea to GitHub, and within say 5 to 6 minutes, you have all these kinds of details ready as to what are my set of requirements, how I'm supposed to break them, and what technologies I should be using to build this particular system. So now, this is a sample, I would say a job description that is present on LinkedIn. So you can just take a look at it, and you can see that whether these qualities can be present into a single human being or not. So LinkedIn has, every job opening, I would say, has these kind of requirements, and everywhere there is a complex architecture system to be managed. So why did all these architecture systems in the world become complex? All of a sudden, what happened to them that they are so complex that you need to hire people saying that you have to come and clean up this complex stuff? So I'm sure no single one individual has all these capabilities, and if he has only one or two of them, if he is a sane engineer, if he knows how to run prompts or what to expect from the system, how the system looks like from an upper view, using GitHub Copilot, we should be able to fill all these gaps. So instead of hiring a 15-year-old experienced person, you can hire a 5 to 6-year-old experienced person who is a good engineer, and if he is a good engineer, he should be able to, using GitHub Copilot, that is at $19 per user per month, you should be able to fill all these gaps very easily. And I can showcase to you going forward how we are going to do that. So now, this kind of work, it generally, before you guys launched startups or some smaller industries did not come to India. So at that time, this quality of work or this kind of work wherein Indian engineers were writing the class names, they were designing the functions, they were designing the APIs. Such work was not happening unless until 2005, 2006, when the industry was ruled by Infosys, TCS, Wipro, and the other giants. So all this work was being done in the West, and Indian engineers would just do some feature changes, add something, add to that. So now when you are hiring an engineer that is around 20 years of experience, you are giving him something around 50 to 60 lakhs per annum. He does not have this experience. So you're hiring him to do this job, but he definitely does not know how to do that. He'll be going to Stack Overflow or some other way to accomplish this. So if we give this tool to those people, the people who understand the software business, so you can select your requirements, you can select your set of requirements, and then you can ask Copilot to design the classes and functions itself. So not only the low-level functions, it is basically giving you the exact pseudocode what you are supposed to do. How your class should be designed, what should be inside your class, what method should be inside your class, and what should be the input and output parameters of this method so as to you getting the maximum output or the best kind of a design that you have in your system. So here you see, it is not only, so just for these three set of requirements, user management, it has given me that I need to have email verification, I need to have a database kind of a system where it stores this thing, I need to have recovery email, recovery password, anything, everything that matches this entire user authentication and management system. So when you as an architect are going to your junior developers or your senior developers or to your team, you have a document that is quite precise. So not only a one-liner, you are not relying on your team to share the inputs and start coding. You now have at least to start something on. I'm not saying that this can be accurate. It is probabilistic. It can be accurate, or maybe you will have to make some changes to it. This can be iterative. But you at least have something to start on. You have something to stand on. So that becomes quite easy. So now this also helps in your estimation. So whenever you are dealing with some clients, with some third parties, and you need to tell them how much time will it take or what kind of resources will it take. So in my previous slide, what I showed you, you have the list of technology. So you can go to your client saying that I need two Java developers, one Kubernetes person, one AWS person, something like that. And after that, using these items, you can understand that how much time it will take for me to code these activities. And even in terms of visualization, so not only text, not only code, it helps you how to visualize your entire system. So now I have just taken some of my requirements. Some of these requirements I have put it and I have told Copilot to give me a mermaid, what you can say, a flow diagram for the same or a component diagram as to how this should be looking. So it will give me some code, and when I put this code to mermaid, so this is the kind of an architecture that I'll be getting. So basically, from your requirements, you are coming on to this kind of a structure within, say, 10 minutes, in which you have all the architecture defined, how will your classes look, how are two of your classes, two of your functions dependent on each other, who is referring what, in what sequence you are supposed to develop, and what kind of functions they'll be calling. Now you might have a question as to ChatGPT is also doing this thing for me, so why should we pay you money? So what happens is, now I showed you on the basis of text, on the basis of requirements, whatever I showed you till now, this can be done also with the help of code. So if you want to generate these kind of develops, if you want to do reverse engineering from your code, you can do this. You can give your code to GitHub Copilot, and from there it can help you generate these kind of diagrams, and it can help you overall reverse engineer the code. So basically, you cannot put your code onto ChatGPT or some public portals. That is where GitHub Copilot comes into the picture, whereas your code is secure. It is tightly bounded by GitHub and Microsoft. You have the security of GitHub and Microsoft so that your code is not leaving the ecosystem, or it is not going anywhere else where it should not be. So we'll talk about meetings. So meetings happen all the time, and the previous activities, the previous slides that I showed you till now, that were resulting in only meetings and meetings. But even after that, we could see that things were not getting straight. The development was getting affected, and after that, we could see the test cases were failing, and everything was happening bad. Means even after doing all those meetings, giving the people the space, the time, the amount and energy and the money that we have invested in them, even after that, the developers were seeing struggling, and the end of the day, the deliveries were not happening. This is where AI comes into the picture, and AI then tells you that we need to stop these meetings, we need to start using this technology, and after using this technology, means we are trying to reduce all your meeting space. So what GitHub Copilot is doing is, it is trying to take care of all the extra activities that are doing. So for example, as a developer writing unit test cases, he must be thinking that it is not adding value to his resume. So any kind of side activities that apart, he should be focusing only on the activities where his brain should be concentrated. The rest of the activities such as documentation, such as generating unit test cases, debugging, finding errors, finding syntactical errors, writing code in a similar fashion, all of this should be taken by AI, and it can be done by GitHub Copilot. So now this is a very interesting use case. So Scrum Masters, as you must have seen, so 70–80% of the time they are not very technical people, and you would get into arguments with them saying that why you would require 3 days, and he would ask you to do it in 1 day. So that's the math. There is no logic behind that. You have to abide by what he says. So what you can do with GitHub Copilot is you can take these requirements, and into another file I have taken all the technologies that GitHub Copilot has suggested to me, that for doing these requirements, what kind of technologies I am supposed to use. So giving both of this as a reference, I can tell Copilot to start generating epic stories and tasks for this particular requirement. So it will merge both of these. It will take your requirements, it will take the technologies that are supposed to be done, supposed to be implemented in this, and using this, it will come up with a very detailed plan, and that too, that plan is technically feasible. And in this particular sequence, if you go ahead and directly start implementing these features, your software, you would see that it is getting built quite fast. And it also takes care of the dependencies. So for example, if the database thing needs to be done earlier, and the front-end work needs to be done afterwards. So when you see this implementation, you will see that the sequencing is also defined. So what was happening in meeting rooms, wherein a group of people were deciding, they were writing stories, writing epics, and even after that, they were getting lost. After 15 days of sprint getting over, you would see some spillovers happening. So now you have a very clear-cut idea, and these things are interdependent. So if you see this detailed output, when you go home and try these things, so when you see these things, so these are very specific requirements, and they don't have any interlapping between them. So you can see the amount of intelligence that is going behind all of this. You can see that how much human effort is getting saved when you're trying to perform something like this, in which you are getting everything ready-made. So we started with just 4 to 5 lines of requirements, and with that now we have a functional specification document, how my classes and functions should look like. I do have a diagram to visualize how my software would look. After that, I have broken it down into my epics, tasks, and stories. So I, as a senior developer, I, as a senior engineer, I can pass this information to my teammates, and I can tell them to get on and start doing their development activities then and there. So now we'll move to coding. After we have completed analysis, and now we have the documents ready, now we know what is to be done. But now there is another challenge that I have been suggested to do this activity in Java. So for example, I am a C++ developer all my life, and I have lied on my resume. My uncle is an MLA, so I got this job somehow. So now I'm coming to this area wherein I need to understand how to write this system in the first place. I have no idea how Java code looks like or how it is getting compiled. So I can ask GitHub Copilot as to, for example, give me a system, give me a basic system for user registration, and you should use Java in this case. So here you see it has given me the entire directory structure, how my Java application should look like, and it also contains the code inside them. So these are not blank files, these are code files. So this is how a Java project should be running, and this is how your dependency should be put into place. And for example, this is your skeleton structure. So tomorrow when you're using it for testing, and if you need to generate some systems that are there for testing systems that you want to just make and break, you can use Copilot. Within 3 to 4 minutes, you will have an entire system. Whatever you want the system to do, you just mention in your prompt, and you'll get this entire project ready. So this is how powerful it is. So you need not worry about any kind of languages now. So there is no need to go into the market and search for Python developers, Java developers, or any other specific skill developers. You just need one developer. And the languages and everything, the backend activities, Copilot will take care of them. So this I'm not going to talk much about it. So what you need to do is, in my previous slide, basically, so you just need to tell Copilot what is to be done. As to if you need to write new code, if you need to understand how to write new pieces of code. So whatever Copilot gave you in the planning stage, so it gave you this task and stories, right? Whatever is in your task, just pick it, put it into this as a comment in line numbers 123 as you see. So it will start writing code for you. So you need not understand any particular language. You need not switch tabs. You go to Stack Overflow. You try to understand what is happening. In plain English, you just mention to Copilot, this is my task. My manager gave me this thing in the morning, and this is how it is to be executed. And 2 p.m. you can pack your bags and go home. So now when we are talking about code, so what happens is every developer can code, every person in the world can code. The problem occurs when this code breaks. Okay, so when this code breaks after around say 2 days, 3 days, or on some company cycles, the security and everything, the checks happen around say 4 to 5 weeks after that. So when these thing breaks, so it costs thousands of dollars to fix that when you're bringing that bug back to that ecosystem for the development phase. So when you're using Copilot, once you have written your code, that is obviously Copilot has given you, still you can do a sanity check. You can check it for any kind of security issues. So all kind of vulnerabilities that are present into the system, any kind of code that is poorly written, any kind of code that is not written in an optimized manner. So it will give you all those fixes. If there are syntax errors, if there are compilation errors, if you have to do some bug fixing, if in production this particular code is taking too much of CPU, it is consuming too much of resources, you just need to tell Copilot, fix this for me, and it will give you all the new code that this is how you should be writing your new code. So the stages that were happening, so bug fixing is something that gave the developers sleepless nights. But when you have something like Copilot, there won't be any bugs at all. And even if there is a bug, there is a solution to it then and there. And most of the developers, they don't understand the security language. So security would be like there is an SQL injection happening. But we as developers, we were never taught what is SQL injection. We were just taught that you have to print hello world and that is, life is rosy after that. So when you're using Copilot, all these kind of issues that are to be discovered at a later stage. So in this particular coding stage itself, you are getting clean code, you are getting code that can be executed that is free from any kind of problems going forward. So if you are a lateral joiner and you need to understand, so you are running after your seniors to explain what is this project. So there are some kind of people who have been in the company for around say 15 to 20 years. So they are not loyal, they are not getting jobs anywhere else. But they have made this kind of an ecosystem, as in they are the owners of this code and they know everything what is happening. So when you are paying $19, when you are holding a license for GitHub Copilot, you can go to any specific line, you can tell Copilot to explain this to me, and it will explain all these properties to you. So what this code is doing, what are the functions, from where it is getting called, every such thing you can understand with the help of GitHub Copilot. And if you are, consider this as your senior friend in an office, so that is always there to help you out without any chargebacks basically. And if you think that you don't want English speaking friends, you want people to speak in your regional language, you can talk to Copilot in your regional language. You can tell it to मुझे बताओ यहाँ क्या चल रहा है, और Copilot आपको हिंदी में समझाएगा. Okay, so now this is one thing that developers hate, that their code is working and they don't know how it is working. So they don't want to explain to the world what they have done and how they are supposed to justify what they have done. So what Copilot does in this case is, so after 3 to 4 months, if a developer himself sees his code, he is not able to understand what he has written. So when you're dealing with Copilot, what you can do is, when you are done with your changes, when you are sure that your feature branch is working fine, you can tell Copilot to understand these particular changes. And after understanding, it is supposed to give you the details of what are the changes happening. So even after say 3 to 4 months, 6 months down the line, if a new person joins this company and he looks at that change, he will understand that this is the reason this change was done. So you understand where I'm going right now, that your requirements are very sorted now. They have a numbering system to that. After that, you have your epic story and task. They also have some IDs associated. You will be doing coding basis on that, and on the basis of that, your entire code will be in your ecosystem. So there is an entire tracking that is getting established here. So what was haywire some months down the line? After using GitHub Copilot, these things, after around 1 or 2 months, you start to believe that these things are now falling into line, and you are understanding your system better. From one glance, you are able to see that how your requirements are flowing and how your software is getting developed. So see, it has given you such detail. The code is written by the developer, but GitHub Copilot is telling in so and so particular line what is done and what is happening in these areas. So this is how in detail it can go. So now, one more challenge in the process is code reviews take a long time. And that is because the reviewer also needs to understand what you are trying to do. So he needs to, for an effective review, he does not only have to give syntactical problems or change this variable name, change this number of lines, shorten it or so, or even IDs do that. So they need to give some logical inputs. And many a times it happens that they are busy with their work, or probably they don't understand these technologies. So that is why there are delays in the review system happening. So Copilot can help you here as well. So this is a pull request that has been given to me by my junior, and I am supposed to understand what is happening. So from his pull request, from his changes, I can ask Copilot as to what the developer is trying to do. So here I can understand what is happening. And as a side note, I can even ask Copilot as to, are there any improvements to this code? And if there are any improvements, I can suggest that the same thing. So as a reviewer, my job is to, when you are giving suggestions, you should also tell me that what is the best way to do that. Just telling that this is wrong, this is not going to work, right? The juniors are not going to respect you for that. So you need to give them proper justification, and this is how you're supposed to improve your stuff. So this is where GitHub Copilot can definitely help you in this case. Finally, we are moving towards the testing phase. So now our coding is complete, our codes are free of bugs, and for us it is very much, it is understandable that it is running, we as developers. Now, we are hiring specific people to do the testing part. So what we can do is, from the requirements, we can start generating test documents. Otherwise, we can go reverse. We can select the code piece, and as unit test, we can tell Copilot to generate unit test cases, and it can do that in a text manner, and we can also tell it to write unit test cases. So now this was a Java function. So for this Java, it understood that this is Java code, and so methods are getting tested, and it will give you the exact code. So if you just copy this thing into another Java file and run it, so you have your test cases handy. So these things are now going hand in hand. So what happens when you're giving estimations in your company? If an developer says that it will take 2 days, he'll never consider the unit testing time that is taken into consideration. But when you have Copilot, everything is included. Your documentation, your test cases, your bug fixing, your security enhancements, clean and precise and good working code is moving out of your system each and every time. So in terms of deployment also, it can help you. So we need not rely on very complex systems or people that are familiar with AWS, Azure, Kubernetes, Docker. They need multiple, they need to just generate this pipeline, and it gets going complex and complex. But when you have Copilot, any kind of language, if you just able to draw this deployment pipeline on a piece of paper, from here my code will come, and from here it will get deployed. This is the package that will get changed in between or anything as such. So Copilot can help you write that code. It can help you deploy to Azure, deploy to AWS, create packages, deploy to Artifactory, create Kubernetes clusters. Whatever you try in the DevOps space, it is quite possible for you to do that without having the explicit knowledge of those tools that are getting released in the market day in, day out. So you also need not stay updated on these tools. So if you have some basic understanding how DevOps works, whatever new technologies that are coming into the market, Copilot can help you assess that. And if it is finding it suitable for your job, for your requirement, it will tell you how it is supposed to fix that thing. Okay, so the scariest part of SDLC, that is the documentation. I see some of you smiling, so that's the smile of shame, smile of guilt, I believe. So just like NASA one fine day, he decides that Pluto is not part of the solar system, one day all of us will be responsible for putting documentation out of this SDLC ecosystem. So yeah, long story short, nobody likes this thing, nobody likes documentation, and developers, they don't like to justify what they have tried to, what they are trying to do. So using Copilot, you can generate any kind of documents that you can think of. So you want to do API specification documents, you want to release something onto the market, and any kind of documentation that you think is relevant for you in this space. So you can ask Copilot to do all kind of engineering work for you. That is, refer your code and create documentation, refer your requirements and create documentation, refer your test cases and do this particular documentation. So here you see, here I selected a function, and I told Copilot to generate a API specification document for me. So it went ahead, and it is giving you such accurate details that you can simply just put it, parcel it into a PDF file, and you can send it across. So now I just showed you the use cases that were there individually, but what happens is with Copilot, when you're dealing with such a powerful AI tool, you can link 2-3 of your phases together. What you can do is, you have your test cases written somewhere. These are your test cases, these are your requirements, and this is your end piece of code. You can select all of these 3 files, put it to Copilot, and tell it whether all my requirements are developed or all my requirements are getting tested or no. So basically, you have this kind of a mapping saying that somebody is sitting there to analyze what kind of work you have done. Have you completed all of your requirements, and have you tested all of your requirements? So when you're dealing with Copilot, multiple things can happen, and in the entire SDLC, you can use Copilot, you can plug and play things anywhere you want, and on the basis of that, you will have your SDLC pipeline quite streamlined. So in each and every step, we are taking away all the hard work that is supposed to be done by you, all the mundane activities that does not require much of your brains, I would say. So be it debugging, be it documentation, be it writing unit test cases, or things that are not adding value to you as a developer on your resume. So these things we are taking care of you using AI. So in your day-to-day profile, when you see, when you're dealing with SDLC, when you're dealing with all these parameters, when you're using AI, when you're using the power of AI, these things come very easy to you, and you will enjoy coming to office because you understand that you are not supposed to spend time on these kind of activities that do not interest you. So whenever I go to my first slide where the CTOs, where the founders, they wanted innovation, they wanted speed, this is how you can achieve innovation and you can achieve speed. So basically you as developers will get lots of free time. You can think out of the box, you can make enhancements to your projects, you can suggest some changes to your project managers that this is what I want to do. Because your mind is free, you are not filled with solving those bug fixes, solving those security issues that are just day in, day out parcel of your life. So you can just keep them aside, hand those over to AI, and focus on more important things in your career and life. So I would say that generative AI, though it is fairly new, it is here to stay. It is here to make an impact. So even if you are not considering it at this stage, maybe some years down the line, you will feel the urge of trying to get these systems accommodated into your ecosystem. And it is not only the tech startups or the new age businesses, I would say, that are going for this. So even the oldest and legacy businesses in India. So I would say even the banks that are present in India, so they were working on quite legacy systems. So they are also running in this race to acquire this AI into their systems. So at this moment, GitHub Copilot, it is being used by more than 50,000 companies worldwide, and we have more than 2 million paid developers that are using this ecosystem. So GitHub Copilot is the world leader in terms of generative AI for software development. And when you are dealing with such kind of a tool, when you're trying to implement or use this particular tool into your ecosystem, it is definitely going to make your lives much easier. Okay, with this, I'll end my presentation. I am open to any questions, if any.
Hey Vicky, great presentation. But the problem is that it works really great on greenfield projects, right? But let's say if I have a legacy system where there are a lot of constraints. So I have two-part question. The legacy system where there are a lot of constraints, I can't upgrade certain libraries or things like that, right? How does it understand those kind of scenarios? Second is, let's say I have a multi-module system. Do I need to have monorepo for like Copilot to get the context and then generate the code, or how does it work in those scenarios?
Okay, so when you say that it is working nice for the newer projects or newer technologies, and it is not helping you much in the legacy technologies. So there's a reason for that, that this model is trained on the public code that is available in the market. And the new technologies, for example, Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, they were rigorously used in the past 10 to 15 years, and that is why we have lots of content to train the model on. But the legacy systems, there was little bit code available, or I would say comparatively as compared to Python, there would be less number of files available for the model to refer. That is why the answers would not be that accurate at the first time. So you would go in an iterative manner to do that. Maybe, for example, for Python, it can give you the solution in one go. For any of the legacy things, for example, if you're dealing with COBOL, so maybe after, say, around 1 or 2 iterations, you will come to the common point. But yeah, just consider this case that earlier you had nothing, now you had something to stand on. So if you need to go to the Bangalore airport, so at this moment, Ola and Uber are there. So you think Copilot is there, you'll reach there faster, and you cannot see that life can be worse if you're not having that. So you can say that even if Copilot is helping you 20%, not 80% in this case, you do have some standing ground to stand on. And at this price at which Copilot is getting offered, this is a steal deal, I would say. I'm sorry, what was the other question?
So for multi-module system, do I need to have monorepo for Copilot to get the entire context to generate code?
Okay, how Copilot works is at this moment, whatever context you are giving to Copilot, it will only take that. So it is not going to enter into your laptops, into your C drive and into your desktops and see what kind of files are to be kept. So these LLM models, everywhere where you see in this world, so they have a token limitation as well. So basically, whatever inputs you are giving. So for example, if you're trying to decode what is the weather in Maharashtra, you're trying to come up with a model. But if you try to provide it the details of the entire India, then the model would get confused and it would take time for it to give you the proper answer. But if you just give it the map of Maharashtra and some things related to that, it will help you give the proper result accordingly. So I would say Copilot is not made for solving bulk issues, or as Rahul Gandhi puts it, putting potatoes from one side and getting gold on the other side. So it is meant for you to understand your ecosystem, and in small bits and pieces, you tackle your software problem. That's why you are the Copilot. This is the Copilot and you are the pilot in this case.
Any other questions?
I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that. Yes, please go ahead.
Hey Vicky, great presentation, and thanks
you.
for being very raw and real. I would say that's very important. But just adding, I think just a follow-up question to that. So typically especially in B2B SaaS, right, you don't have a one-pager requirement, right? You typically have like a huge PRD, right? And then on top that you have built already. And on top of that, you have like a new functionality, right?
Correct.
So in that case, like how do we leverage like something like Copilot so that it can get the context of the existing built feature and now build on top of that?
Okay, so what happens in this case is, if you have already developed something, or there are some files that are containing some piece of your code or the pattern in which you are supposed to write, so you can give that as a sample to GitHub Copilot and let it learn from that for a while. You can say that this is my reference and this is my new functionality. Using this or using this existing framework, you go ahead and start writing the new code in that case. So it will help you generate that. So you have to make sure that you are interacting with the model within around 15-20 days. You'll also understand how to communicate with the model, and the model will also start understanding your language, and you both can equally go ahead from there.
Makes sense. Thanks for that. And just adding on to that, so do I have to pass the context every time, or like for my organization, let's say I have 50 engineers, right?
Okay.
Can I set a like organization-wide coding patterns, coding strategies, etc.?
Okay, so now I'll club this gentleman's question with that. So we basically in GitHub Copilot, we have 3 offerings. One is Copilot for individuals, that is there for students and for somebody who needs to practice privately. So that is placed at $10 per user per month. And there is, in any of these models, there is no limitation of how many prompts you are saying, how many questions you are asking, or any number of bandwidth that is getting restricted. So there is nothing as such. Once you have this license, whole day and night you can keep talking to Copilot if you are feeling alone, not a problem. So when you're dealing with Copilot, and then there is the other offering, that is Copilot for Business. So this is where most of the companies are using this particular model. Copilot for Business is priced at $19 per user per month. So Copilot for Business is an ID-based solution. So it does not require your code to be explicitly present on github.com. It can be present anywhere. It just needs to be present on your local laptop machine. After that, you can use one of the IDs that we support, for example, VS Code, Visual Studio Code. Inside that, we have this extension, so that will communicate your code. It will send it to the cloud, do this communication, send back, and give you its answers. The third one, the most advanced one, that is called GitHub Copilot for Enterprise. So what I showed in some of the examples, I was using Enterprise. So Enterprise is priced at $39 per user. So this enterprise model, it is capable of talking to multiple repositories. So for this, your code needs to be on github.com. And if you have 4 to 5 repositories, for example, if you are doing database activities, in one repository you have written for Postgres, one repository for PLSQL. So both of these you can give as context in github.com screen itself, and you can start communicating to Copilot, and it will give you answers based on the knowledge base that it has created from what all the previous code has been pushed onto those repositories. So the Copilot for Enterprise is the answer to the query that you're trying to ask.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I hope I answered your question, right?
Hey Vicky, this is Ankit here.
Thank you.
So you showcase some of the possibilities and in a demonstration. So so one of my as a personal objective is always that the AI should not, or this kind of LLM model should not create more work for us. Versus as a human, it should actually reduce work for us, right? So in this model. A lot of tasks got created in the Jira. The sample,
Correct.
you have a 20 list of the items. Now it's a structured work for me. That's okay. But where do you see this going to the next level of integration? How far Copilot is? How far GitHub is? In the next level of integration where things just work. Click of a button, it creates a Jira task for me. Click of a button, it creates a patch and pull request for me. Click of a button, it does plenty of things.
It already is. So that thing is not really far. So you will see that thing in 2024 itself. So there's a thing called as Copilot extensions. So Copilot extensions is something, for example, Microsoft Teams I would take. So Teams is something that we all use to communicate, right? So when you and I are speaking on Teams, okay, and we are discussing a project. So I'll tell that, Ankit, this is to be done by you. So from Teams, you can connect GitHub and you can start creating your tickets and you can start coding as well. So you need not even go to github.com. So basically, when you are in Teams, you are supposed to do that. So this thing is called GitHub Copilot extensions. It is already launched, means we are just in the process of making it public to you. So very soon you will be able to see such things. And if you are a startup founder, if you are having some programs of your own, you can try to create there are partner programs wherein you can try to create an extension and put it to github.com. So you'll have access to 90% of the world's developers. If your startup is somewhere, it is related to coding and software and infrastructure.
Okay, thank you very much.
So I want to ask about the model which is built, the Copilot. Is it based on OpenAI's model, or is it completely built by GitHub?
No, so as Microsoft also now has stakes in OpenAI, so the model is provided to us by OpenAI. It is also trained by OpenAI. We are using GPT 3.5 Turbo and we are slowly moving towards GPT 4 at this moment. But this model is specifically designed to answer software queries. So if you're trying to ask it some random question that is not related to software, it won't be able to answer that.
As this model is built on top of all the open source projects under MIT or Apache license, or all the kinds of licenses available now. So is there any chance where you guys are going to open source this model?
No, so what will happen is we are trying to not to provide you duplicate code at any point of time. So, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, duplicate code means?
No, I didn't get your question.
My question is there any plan for GitHub to open source?
No, not at this moment.
Not at the moment, anywhere in the future?
I can't predict the future right now, but at this moment we don't have plans for that.
Okay.
Okay, any more?
Yeah. So how efficiently this works for the embedded languages like say device drivers or the GPU optimizations?
Correct. So some of our customers who are into this embedded space, who are into the automotive or aeronautical space that have these kind of technologies wherein they have to deal day in and day out with embedded systems, AutoSARs and some related framework DO178B standards. So I would say that the model is somewhere between 25 to 30% acceptance rate. So in terms of generative AI, we don't talk about accuracy, we talk about acceptance rates. So if I give you 10 suggestions, out of 10 you see that 3 are fitting directly into your ecosystem, 3 you are accepting it directly. So in terms of those systems, embedded systems and some of the legacy systems wherein native C or operating system things are involved, we are seeing close to 25 to 30% of acceptance rate of the suggestions that the model is providing.
So when you said automotive, that has some strict specification of ASPICE and other things.
Yeah.
So these things are tuned to take care of those processes also?
Somewhat means, see, the model has been trained on the code that has already been written by humans over all these decades, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody had done these activities, and when these models, for example, when aeronautical code is being written, when aerospace code is being written, so DO178 standards, they have to be followed. You cannot pass the project without without completing these checks. So naturally, the model also has some kind of intelligence. It will provide you the code that is in accordance to that, Otherwise, what you can do is you can select those particular areas from those particular documents that these are my standards. I want my code to be written in accordance to these particular standards, and then Copilot can help you accordingly.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Hi, it was very engaging session, by the way. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
that. And I just want to know how compatible Copilot in AR.
Sorry?
How much compatible? Because I know it's very good at in Ruby on Rails or Java, more languages. When it comes to AR, those things, how compatible? And moreover, I would like to add one more question. Like, as you mentioned, how can we mention that this is industry standard? How should we think that?
Okay. To answer your first question, in terms of AR, I would say it is not that much user friendly or that much accurate as compared to the modern languages that we have there, or in terms of the AR frameworks that you're trying to use. So you will find that you will have to do some iterations of your own. So it will leave you to a point wherein you are stable, you understand this thing, and at least 20 to 30% it has helped you move forward. But after that, it will be you that you will be leading the charge. So you'll have to keep on feeding Copilot that I need this at the next step, and after that, it will help you go along that. But yeah, something is better than nothing, I would say.
True, very true. By the way, do we have any training materials or these integration stuff?
Okay, so we we always believe in open source. So whatever we have internally as training materials as a company, it's all available on GitHub's website and also on the GitHub's YouTube channel. So you can check that out and you'll see all kind of use cases. And GitHub has more than 100 million repositories. So there are so many users out there. Sometimes even before us, there are people who are uploading those videos. So yeah, you have tons of information on the internet. There is nothing that we are keeping internally or within ourselves. So everything is open on the internet.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is an interactive session. Thank you so much, Vicky.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? One last question you can pick up.
Is it compatible with all IDs or is it restricted to only certain?
So all popular IDs, I would say, except Eclipse. So VS Code, Visual Studio Code, all IDs that come under the IntelliJ bracket, JetBrains family. So that is compatible. Also, it is compatible with Vim and NeoVim. So these are the 4 that we are supporting right now. But yeah, Eclipse is something that is not available at this moment. Okay, fair enough. I'll take your leave now. Thank you so much.